Hello, everyone. Happy to see everybody here. My name is Karlis. I am co-founder and business development director for Square Meter. Today we will discuss more topics with amazing people here. First panel discussion name is Alternative Real Estate Development Future. And we will be joined by Janis Ozols, Vecerka, and Ritvars Sebris, and my partner and co-founder Peteris Ozols. Peteris, maybe you can take over.
Yes, so guys, it's really nice to see all of you listening and all of our presenters that we have here. We're going to be covering really interesting topics in these 2 days. We have a lot of new information prepared for you, so we're really hoping that you're going to enjoy the event, and we're going to try to make it as interesting as possible. So in the first panel discussion, we're going to be discussing the predictions for the future concerning real estate and real estate development, how the COVID-19 has impacted the real estate development projects and what changes it has made in the market, more in details in the European market. What is more in focus? Is it the residential architecture buildings or is it the commercial real estate development? We're going to talk a little bit about the shared economy and also the alternative real estate, which is the main topic of our online event. More concerned about container architecture and shipping container usage for commercial and residential buildings. So
maybe Janis, you can introduce yourself.
Yes, let's start with introductions.
Yeah.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Janis Ozols. I represent Colliers. I'm a partner and I'm responsible for valuations and advisory services in our Riga office. And thank you guys for inviting me to this event.
Thanks, Janis, for participating. Maybe Jan, you can introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. My name is Jan Vecerka, and I'm one of the founders and CEO of Brikkapp. And I would really like to thank you for inviting me for this event. And what we are doing in Brikkapp is that we focus on real estate crowdfunding. We collect, part of what we are doing is that we collect a lot of data, and we have collected a lot of data about this market as there are more than 170 platforms all around Europe focusing on this type of investing. And we bring everything to one place that our users can see what is happening on the market.
Thanks, Jan, for introduction. And Ritvars, please introduce yourself.
Yes, good day, everyone. My name is Ritvars Sebris, and I'm from AVER Brokerage. I'm the sales manager of the whole team, and we are one of the fastest growing real estate companies in Latvia. And I'm looking forward in 7 to give my opinion on residential property.
Thanks for the introduction. Peteris, please.
Great. Okay, so let's start. Maybe let's start with the first most interesting and I think most talked about topic in the past year, COVID-19. So guys, maybe Ritvars, you could start by telling what COVID-19 has, what changes have been in the real estate market. As I understood, you're more into private residential market. So maybe you can tell us more in details what has happened.
Yes. So at the start, when COVID came in, there was a lot of scarcity, and that's why the deals broke down in the residential side till summer. When summer, people got used to that COVID ain't gonna end the world. Everything kind of started slowly climbing back, and I would say that in winter and this year's spring was the highest point right now with the prices, with the deals have been done, and then the whole construction. The construction expenses went even higher and higher, and then some of the for example, houses or properties stopped the building process, but mostly the large one continued. And and the current situation right now is that people are willing to buy. There is right now is a seller's market because a lot of people would like to buy and can buy because banks are giving lower those loan percentages. Altum is coming out with a lot of help for young people to buy for example, flats or houses or lands. So everybody is helping, but the supply of properties right now is in deficit. So I hear a lot of that people want to buy, but there's nothing they can buy. And I also looked at that's my microphone, which is so loud, or
we hear you very well.
Okay, great. Yeah, and also I looked at houses because, well, this probably our discussion will be a bit more about houses because containers and houses. And I looked at, for example, permits to build houses, new houses, have been growing each year. For example, if in 2018 there were something around 1,000 permits of new houses in region of Riga, because that's the most that's the common place where people would like to build a house. Then now in 2020 there was 1,100, and this year there's already in the first quarter of the year there are already 300 permits to building new houses. So I think we are going to the there in history was a saying, American dream, when every American had a house. And I think we are slowly going to that side, that government and people will like to move more to houses. So I also looked at that there are a lot of these, I don't know how it's in English, but detailplānojums, where people there's a large area of the land plot, and they just divide it in smaller parts and then build their houses or create these villages. And I think that this we are going to like what I said, everybody needs and has to have a house, a small one or till 200 square meter, but everybody needs a house. So yeah, that's the small insight of the situation right now.
Speaking of square meters, maybe you can distinguish what is the most popular size of houses that we have right now. Is it the two-story houses or the single-story houses? How big are they, like from 80 square meter to 200? What is the difference in the past years, how it has changed?
Yeah, some years before, I looked at the statistics, then the areas for houses was from 100 till 200, 250 square meters, some even till 275. Right now, the most of the houses being sold are from 50 till 200 square meters. So it's becoming even less and less. And that there is one explanation. The people who are buying now houses are from 25 to 35 in age of 25 to 35 years. And those people don't need so large houses as they have been built earlier. So they are looking for more compact where everything is dynamic and everything where you need is put, and I don't know, in closets and things like that. So the most popular areas are from 50 to 200 square meters.
Okay. And Ritvars questions as well. So you mentioned, so you are focusing on the city region, or you see maybe people moving outside the city, or do you have any insights about that?
Yeah, before COVID, people looked at the houses something around 50, 75 kilometers around the capital of Latvia, Riga. Right now, the region has increased to 100, 120 kilometers. So people are looking more abroad, away from Riga, because, well, you can work from home. Okay, maybe sometimes you have to go to the city, or sometimes you have to go to the office, but mainly you can work from home. So yeah, the region is expanding. So that's why also the prices are getting higher for a broader distance from Riga. So yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Yes, very good.
Yeah, and one also thing, I also looked at the demographic side. Well, right now is mostly buying people from 25 to 35. So they were born something around 1990s, and I looked at the demographic side, and in 1990s there were newborns around. Okay, in 2000s, there were 2 times less newborns than in 1990s. So, well, what are we looking at? That I think that in closer future, when the people who were born in 2000 year, who have now 21 year, there will be less buyers. So, well, I think that could affect something on the market, but well, we have to wait it, because there are some years before they can afford a house or something larger than a small flat. Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, if I may follow up on that regarding the crowdfunding industry and the influence of COVID on that industry, I can really agree. What happened last year in spring was that almost everything stopped. It was a big shock for the industry as a whole. But already in summer, things were getting back to, I would not say normal, but more back. And what we've seen from the autumn or winter this year with further lockdowns and everything was that the industry we saw that it has not influenced that much new deals, and the industry got back to growth. So that's what we see from our data. And as well as, for example, regarding geographies or investment opportunities, I can totally agree with that. People are with more flexibility and working from everywhere, that more deals are being financed not in like the, I would say, central areas, but more to the outside areas. That could be one of the trends we see, and which might be the future of the new, where the investors are now looking for. They are looking for much bigger regions than they used to.
But is it concerning the private residential or buildings, or is it in general?
I talked more about the residential area. If we go more to commercial buildings, offices, there I can see another trend in offices, that companies they will definitely keep their offices. The question is, how big or how many square meters they need. If they need the size of the office they used to have before COVID, or if it is sufficient to reduce it of, I don't know, 20, 30, 40%, or what should be the new role, or the new, why they should have the office. And they are like redefining that the office, maybe people would go once the COVID is over. They might not go, their employees might not go every day to the office, but maybe 3 times a week, 2 days from home, or depends, of course, on the position of those people. And the office should serve as the place where people are meeting, but not necessarily they need to only work there.
Yes, actually, we've seen this trend as well, that the office, the need for an office and the purpose of it is changing. So now, as you mentioned, people are not going 5 days a week from working from 9 to 5 to the office, but they're more likely to go to the office to socialize. And because after COVID, if you have worked one year remotely, I think you miss the social interaction with your coworkers. Okay, you see them in your screen during the video calls, but I think the social interaction is really important. That's why the 1 or 2 day office week is really good, when you go to the office to actually see each other. I know that Janis has some insights about the office life and the office real estate development. Maybe you can share some information.
Yeah, sure. We are kind of associate with the commercial real estate, but I also cannot continue with the residential a little bit, because we actually do quite some residential analytics also, and supply that to the larger Riga residential developers. So I totally relate to what Ritvars said, that this kind of crisis, what we can call it, actually residential has sustained it very, very well, up to this point. And the difference actually between the previous crisis and the one currently is that we went into this crisis actually with household savings at the highest point ever. So people have, at this point, households have, if we talk about Latvia also, households have savings on their accounts, and on top of that, if you look also the households with mortgages who have a mortgage is also comparatively low, if we speak about Latvia generally. So obviously this time when simply people went back to their homes and starting working from their bedrooms, at one point they just realized, okay, you need more living space, and this simply created this kind of a boom, and that's why I believe Ritvars is happy and busy, and almost missed this event, So in that sense, that's all very good. Now jumping back to offices, what you asked, there is a trend that actually I think was born already before COVID, but COVID just intensified it. So you rightly said that office is not losing its position as for the companies as kind of a resource in their business. It certainly stays there. The question is just what it's used for. And if before we understood the offices in basically the black and white categories were like open space or closed space, then actually what you should be talking about is the functions you do in the office. And if you consider a company an occupier of a space, then what they would do, they would think of the functions they do in the office. And so when you design the office, so there's obviously the classical thing about you need a desk, but again, and that can be placed, probably in an open space, but that does not necessarily has to be an assigned place. So here comes in the concept of shared desks, so not fixed, and you actually need. So the companies realize they actually don't need to fix a desk for one employee. What they can think of is you have 10 employees, out of which probably 7 at most will ever be in the office. So what you need, and out of those 7, probably only 30% of their time they'll spend at their desk, really doing concentrated work. So the rest of the time they will do probably they'll be in meetings. So for that you need meeting space. and they'll be working in teams. And also for that, you need collaboration space. They'll be doing socializing, and for that you need this kind of social space, and that all comes into the office. And when actually we at Colliers looked at all of these things and also like evaluate kind of the responses and requests that are coming in currently. As a matter of fact, the reduction of space, as weird as it may not sound, it's not that drastic actually, as you would expect, because companies have come to realize that they have to make this office more flexible, and just because they add into this office more meeting rooms, more of these social spaces, and other, let's say, non-traditional types of things, the square meters actually stay quite the same. And actually, but rather what happens is that yes, this creates an opportunity, sort of, that you expect that some of the workers will not come to the office every day of the week. They will probably be in their country houses. And for that, you can see, currently in Pavilosta, they have a co-working there. Seriously, like in Pavilosta, you all have co-working. You have co-working space in Cēsis as well, because those are the hipster places. And I certainly expect more of that popping up, just because the employers will also encourage their employees simply by, I don't know, by even giving them these subscriptions to the co-working spaces in the regions. So that's how I would see it.
This is very, very interesting. Continue, please.
Yeah, I would just agree to Janis that we like as a team also have moved to this model. And what I can say from real estate perspective, the bankers, the land book, the notarios work so much faster from home. So that's a joke in our industry, that everything has gone so much faster, and I love it. And there are so many digital stuff what has came in with all the e-signing, and you can sell or buy a property even from I don't know, Hawaii. From Hawaii Beach, if you have a e-sign or smart ID verified. So COVID also gave a lot of digital things, which helps us.
What Janis also mentioned, we would like to agree with this, because I think this is the age of the rise of the new trend, which is a workation. That actually there are large companies that are thinking of this remote working model, that you can actually work like 5 months a year, or well, let's say around 5 months a year, you can actually work from another place in the world. You don't have to stay remotely in your city. You don't have to go to the office. And I think this is really interesting. And what you guys also mentioned, that the productivity, it has risen in the COVID times, because I think people have understood that, each of us have our own timelines and how we want to work. Well, for example, I can tell that I'm more productive in the morning, then after like 3 o'clock, I just cannot work anymore. I'm done, and I need to take some rest. I need to do something else. And then after 7 o'clock in the evening, I can start doing things again. And I think this is really nice, because a lot of people have understood that they don't have to work 8 hours a day from 9 to 5, put all their effort in just these 8 hours, and after the work day is off, they don't do anything anymore. And I think this is the reason why the productivity has risen during COVID times, because people work in the evenings. They don't actually have anything against that, which employees might actually view as something interesting. But this is actually an interesting trend that we're experiencing right now.
And just a small comment as well, and add on to what Peteris told about the workation. So Airbnb did a lot of actually huge research, and workation, actually people are now switching to use these workations and booking places for 20 plus days. So the average month, where if you go to the workation, you do it minimum from 1 month period. So this is very interesting.
And this is actually nothing exotic. So if you think of like locally, there's the example of TET, so which is kind of one of the biggest communications IT companies here. They actually also recently introduced this model that they offer. They offer for their employees to what was it like? Also, that they can be like they would pay. No, they basically support their employees if they work from abroad. Kind of take a vacation, travel somewhere. I don't know if it was like a travel allowance or something, you know. But to simply think of it as a creative approach. So basically, they said you want to work from Hawaii, Hong Kong, wherever. Just please do that. The only thing they said is kind of challenging is that like with the time zones and that sort of thing that you have to tell the people, there's a certain time people are working, and let's like stick to local working hours when it comes to communication and tasks. But other than that, it's here.
One important component you need as well, a vaccination in order to travel all around. So
yeah, actually TET was the example I got this information from, because I think in Latvian market, if we're speaking of, they were the pioneers to actually implement the remote working, because they were the first large company that actually allowed all of their employees to work from home 5 days a week. And then afterwards, they implemented, I think, the 1 day work week, and they're looking how to make the schedule of their employees more flexible, so everyone is satisfied. And if the customer, and no, not the customer, but if the employee is satisfied, he's working more effectively and is willing to do more. So maybe let's continue with Jan. I know he has prepared a report on real estate and the development. So please go on.
So I discussed with Karlis to speak more from the perspective of our market, and to speak a bit about real estate crowdfunding and how real estate crowdfunding can support the real estate development. And I would start with some of the data of our market. Currently in Europe, there are more than 170 real estate crowdfunding platforms, which have already covered more than or almost 7 billion euros in funding, and funded more than 13,000 real estate projects. It is really interesting that yields are quite interesting in these areas, with the average of 8.9%, and with the average deal size of 500,000 euros. Despite this number might not look big from the real estate perspective. On the other hand, if we take it into the context that through crowdfunding only a part of the asset size or the whole development is being financed, especially if it is an equity financing or mezzanine financing, already a significant projects or significant sizes of projects are being financed through real estate crowdfunding. And if we look into the regions where this type of investing is popular, so the biggest market is in the DACH region, followed by the UK, the Northern Europe, which is the Scandinavian region, and the Baltic region, followed by France, Southern Europe, and CEE region. We can see that there is a significant growth of real estate crowdfunding platforms. I mentioned a number of 177 platforms at the beginning, and we can see that there are only 9 platforms in 2012. So within less than 10 years, a really big number of platforms have emerged and focused on financing deals in the area. It is an industry which is open to almost everyone, as for more than 84% of platforms, they have their minimum investment lower than 1,000 euros, and there are even platforms where the barrier is less than 100 euros per investment. And if we check what type of assets or type of deals are being financed, so most of the platforms focus on debt investments, small part on equity investments, and some platforms offer both equity and debt investing. And that is really important to say. So as we are moving in the alternative real estate investing space, real estate crowdfunding is one of the ways how to invest or how to finance innovative and, I would say, even alternative real estate developments, as these developments are not that so often financed by the traditional ways of financing of real estate assets. And I just would like to mention that we have created many reports on the real estate crowdfunding, and if you are interested, we'll be happy to share these reports with you.
Thank you. I have a question. Like, what is the average, let's say, time frame that the real estate platforms actually finance the project? Is it like 2 years? Is it up to 10 years? What is the most common period of time?
Yeah, that is a really good question. It depends if we are in the area of debt financing or equity investing. Usually the debt investments are for 1 or 2 years. That is the very common period for these kind of investments. Of course, there might be longer. And in the equity area, it could be for 3, 5, or even longer periods.
Oh, this is interesting because, well, real estate projects, if you're building them to sell, then I think 1 to 2 year period is quite all right. If you actually make the building in the first year and then do the sales in the second, I think the financing round is quite all right. But if you're thinking of renting out the apartment, and if we're speaking of the alternative real estate market, then it's quite tricky because the real estate return on the investment period is mostly around 10 years.
I mean, yeah, and there is the space where the equity financing takes place to finance such deals with like a longer period, but it is very connected with liquidity, and it really depends if the respective platform is able to offer secondary trading, for example, to their investors, because many investors are not comfortable with to invest into an illiquid asset for, I would say, 5 or even more years.
Yeah, that makes sense. We're going to be talking more about the financial aspects and the crowdfunding for real estate in our next, not in our next panel, but in the third panel, which is going to be held tomorrow. So guys, make sure to stay tuned and connect for the panel to hear some more interesting facts about real estate financing and alternative real estate financing.
And just a small comment as well, please don't forget there's an expo booth where you can find all the companies and find more detailed information about them and actually at the daily processes. So,
Okay, so maybe now let's touch the main topic of this whole event, the alternative real estate, and which we meant by the alternative real estate is more prefabricated buildings, is more container buildings, wooden housing. Let's stay in the focus of container buildings, since we have a lot of manufacturers that are taking part in this this event that we're holding, including us, the Square Meter. And what do you guys think about the alternative real estate? Do you see mobile building and mobile construction developing in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years? Because what we have experienced is that there are a lot of people interested in real estate developments that are for the land plots. Let's say you are a developer, you own a land, and it takes a lot of time for you to actually do the building permits and everything for, let's say, a residential building. It might take up to 5 years, and the mobile real estate and mobile construction is actually a way how to penetrate this market and how to make the land plot useful for the next 5 years. Because let's take, for example, container buildings. We can put a whole business park which is built from shipping containers, equipped for working, living, etc. And after 10 years or even 5 years, we can take the whole building off the land plot and we can put it somewhere else. We can sell it, we can move it. This is the really nice part about mobile construction and about mobile real estate development. What do you guys think about it?
I have an idea here that you guys should be using such a term as placemaking as your buzzword.
Oh, okay.
But because what it's about is, it's about creating a footfall of people to a place that wasn't how to say inhabited before. So if from my perspective, if we look at Riga, for instance, we have lots of territories, actually the former industrial territories, I would say, within Riga city, which are currently underutilized, but which are very likely to be converted into something over the next decades, probably. And what also is happening now is that we've seen much of activity actually from strong developers buying up these territories. So for instance, Skanste area, the same, what else up to come is Andrejosta, Andrejsala, all the waterfront basically along what the beautiful waterfront what we have in Riga actually, and other places also VEF area, for instance. So what I see in terms of this container or modular building there is that you can actually to look as an example on a smaller scale, what happened, for instance, in Jaunā Teika, scroll back 5-7 years ago, there was a developer, but what made this Jaunā Teika project so successful was actually that he created a community there. He brought in residential and commercial functions. Plus, he also made sure that people who come there, they have something to do, and so this is I think the way also to go forward for the territories like Skanste, Sporta 2, the square, the block, which currently also just recently also changed hands. So. They also went this direction, that they used the former industrial buildings to bring in some content, which is different from it used to be a Lima factory before, or Staburadze, and in the past years they simply brought in creative industries and food courts and events and that sort of thing. And I think also this. So if to take this as an example. So what this modular construction allows us to bring in these things, these functions, let's say, into a territory and actually test how it works, how the people react to it, what are the, let's say, proportions of it that are needed. And also the good thing is that unlike regular or traditional development, you basically come up with a scheme that you want to build. You take bricks and mortar, you build it, and it basically stands there as it is for the next 50 or 100 years. But you can't do any alterations to it. But if we're speaking of your type of product, is that let's say you have this, let's say, there's going to be always a longer term vision, but for the short to mid term, I'd say that this is very beneficial in a way that you can do this development in an agile form. You can basically put in those blocks, create the buzz around the space, create kind of the people to understand that this is kind of a landmark location, that something is going on here, that you create interest. And meanwhile, you start building something like more fundamental, monumental. But at the same time, once you've built, the classic stuff, the big stuff, you still have some residual value left in the containers that you can sell off. And I think that is the whole kind of theory. I don't know how that, I would be happy to see that, how it works actually in practice on real financial numbers, but in theory, it should work very, very well, I think.
Yeah, and I think the great part is that actually the land developer, they don't lose money during this development phase. They actually gain the money, and they actually gain more value for the property that they're willing to develop in the future.
Yeah, again, on the example of Riga, I don't have any benchmarks to say where to prove that you actually earn a decent return on this kind of temporary development. But at least I think what you create is this immaterial value added to the place.
So, Janis, a small comment as well. There is a project into the industrial space. It's in Switzerland, in Zurich. So there's a project which is built by Swiss Insurance Life AG, and there's a 135 container project. It was built. The first build it's already. I don't want to. I think it was 10 years ago. And it was moved, the 135 containers, it was moved 2 times from one side to another. So the mobility, is very important, and you can do it actually with that. Not talking about financial here, at least at start.
Actually, one company did the same thing in Amsterdam. It was also like, I think 12 years ago. They developed this huge apartment block from shipping containers. It was 1,000 shipping containers. Each container was a single housing unit for the students, because at that time Amsterdam was experiencing a really big shortage of accessible and affordable spaces for the students to live. So they rented the land plot from the municipality for 10 years, and they set up this whole building for 10 years. I looked at their financials. They actually sent me the report about it. And after the 10 years, of course, the containers have lost some of its value, but it still holds like 50 or 40% of the initial value that you're having. And let's take, for example, you have the return period of this whole complex about 6 or 7 years, and after 10 years you're also already in the profit. And when you're selling off the 1,000 containers for let's say 40% of its initial value, you get even more profit. And I think this is the greatest part about this whole mobile industrial buildings.
If to share my own experience, I've been to this place in London, Shoreditch Box Park.
Yeah,
I think it's very famous on Instagram and Facebook. So it's also about it's kind of also like the way I understand that this part of the city, Shoreditch is not like the kind of not like the most prestigious one. I would probably compare it something to Moscow's Forstede or something like that to some extent, but at the same time, the vibe that felt there, about all this complex and the folks going in there and the life going on, the street food, the events, it was really awesome. And it was all about containers. So
yeah, it creates great value and it gives a really good vibe. My friend actually was in Shoreditch, and I asked him to take some pictures of it. And he actually said that Shoreditch has, I think, the highest crime rate in London. So that's definitely not the best neighborhood, but well, the container presence helps to create the hip around it and helps to move the community around.
mm-hmm.
So, Ritvars, Jan, do you have anything to add to this?
Yes, I agree that from my perspective, the containers would work like in environments like Janis said, in for example Tallinnas kvartals, VEF kvartals, Andriosas kvartals, because it fits in there, and well, yeah, the people who work there, they are a bit more modern, and they want something new, and the containers are what could fit them. And if I look from the residential side, well, at least for the next 5 or 10 years, Latvians are in base pretty conservative, and I think that in the next 5 to 10 years, maybe we. Okay, in my opinion, containers can work like as an Airbnb place at nice places where you can't build, or where it's long period time to build, because for these containers it's really what I have read, it's really fast, and that's also great. You don't have to wait a year to build. And for example, there are also places where it isn't allowed to build, I don't know, there are 2-story, 200 meters house, but you can build a small container place with a great view. Maybe there's a river or lake, and that could work for Airbnb or yeah, like small offices. And but if we speak like, will somebody build a house from containers to live in, like in long term? Well, right now I think not, because people haven't seen any examples, or yeah, Latvians are conservative. But maybe in 5 to 10 years, when the people who are right now 20 will be 30, and the world will be maybe a bit more even changed, then maybe that will be an option if the math behind it is pretty okay, is pretty good. Because I haven't gotten information how cheaper is to build this container house instead of regular house. I know for how much you can build a regular house, but container house, maybe you can give me an insight, like what are the prices for square meters and things like that?
It actually really depends on the type of building you're looking to develop, because it can, as in real estate, you can build a residential private house for, let's say, 400 euros a square meter, and you can build it for 2,000. It all depends on the materials, but the containers, it's basically the same. You can build a house starting from 400 to 500 euros per square meter, and you can also build it for 1,000. So yeah, it all depends on what the people want. And yeah, I'm gonna agree with you a little bit about the conservative Latvians, because well, from my personal perspective, I can say that I come from the construction side, and we've been developing container projects for the last 6 years, and yeah, the Latvians are really conservative concerning these things. That's why we've been more in focus of commercial buildings, and they're more open towards that. But when speaking of living containers and for residentials, I think actually the laws and regulations are coming towards actually people thinking of these kind of buildings, because it's a lot easier to get the permit for living in for example in one container. So this is also a temporary solution which you can put in the place where you want to build your residential house. And for example, it will take 2 years for you to build the house, but you can have the container there right now, and you can actually live there. But it's not going to be very difficult when we're speaking of comfort, because container buildings, they have all the same added value things that have normal residential buildings. And nowadays, I think the technology and the materials used in construction are constantly evolving, so we can actually make the products as comfortable and as nice as possible, and make them towards the customer and their needs as they want.
I absolutely agree that like this for permanent living, I think a traditional Latvian family, you know, they are
for young generation.
Yeah, they are pretty unlikely to choose it, you know, as something to put on their land plot somewhere, I don't know, in the Riga suburbs. But then again, we Latvians somehow relate ourselves to this rural DNA, and we like to have our holiday homes. And I think for the holiday homes, and also what you mentioned, this having a holiday home, or maybe having it as also a holiday home to rent out. So this type of thing, I think, is also very high on the agenda. I think if you have a beautiful spot somewhere and you want to put something up there, you know, quickly and without much fuss, I think this prefab modular building is absolutely the first choice there.
Yeah, I mean,
I
I can
agree
use
on that.
the example from here in Prague. For example, the development process or the building permit process is a nightmare here, and it takes years and years and years to, you know, get all the stamps from the government offices. And but on the other hand, there are many places or many land plots in very central areas which are waiting for buildings to be constructed there. And I really see the use case there to build a container building there, more to, let's say, retail or commercial usage, and to have it there for, I don't know, 5-7 years before the building permit, the developer gets the building permit, and after to move it somewhere else in the central area and continue within the business model which the container complex would have. And this is, I can agree that Czech people are conservative as well, that it would be big change for them to really live in a container building, despite maybe the implementation process might be, let's start with a commercial building, have it as a reference that people can see, oh, it works, it might be used for a normal, I would say, a normal store or normal retail space or something like that. And later on, okay, it might work for living. And maybe it could be good, for example, for living for people who have just finished the university and started their first job to live there. Not that much from my perspective for family or older people.
If I may add, one of the things I'm thinking where this could also work really well is actually the public sector, because for the things like schools and kindergartens, what Ritvars already mentioned, you know, that we have this demographics in Latvia, the kind of this, the curve is really volatile actually. And at this point, we're more or less somewhere here, but in a couple of years, there's going to be a huge slump. And what we see currently is actually that in the places where people migrate to, currently this urban sprawl happening more or less out of Riga. Then in the suburbs, you have a lack of schools and kindergarten places, and I think this could be a kind of a quick fix for the municipality to supply this function that they are supposed to do actually. But then again, in a 5-10 years time, you know, if this capacity becomes unused, surplus, you just, you know, you take a block away and you sell it to somewhere else where this is needed. And I believe now also that in the past, these containers, the first association you get is simply these blue containers stacked up on the construction sites, which is not that aesthetic side. But I know you guys actually think of architecture as as a value that you create, and if you do this in a way that is somehow aesthetically appealing, and it can be, of course, then why not have kindergartens, the same medical services points, what we see now, as they're actually also now popping up, in the shopping centers, next to shopping centers, these small medical services points. So why not place them in some regional cities where they need this. So you just have the need, and the public sector just quickly arranges and fixes it.
Yeah, this is actually a great point. So as you mentioned before, everyone, when you're speaking of containers, everyone's thinking of these blue containers which are used in the construction site. Well, this is actually what we're trying to work away from. So guys, just tune in for the next panel that we're going to have about container architecture in practice, where we're going to explain a little bit more that containers are not just the blue boxes that construction workers drink their morning coffee in and take a shit. So basically, yeah, it's something more, and what we're trying to do is inform people that this is architectural. This is a way of thinking, and you can actually make it as aesthetic as possible, and make it appealing for your eye, and make it as you want it. So be sure to check the next events that we're gonna have.
Yeah, I just wanted to agree to Janis and Jan. The idea of if people will see the containers in the public houses, not public houses, but public sector, and offices and small Airbnb houses, maybe in some time they will get normal to it, just like the COVID. That's normal stuff that can be lived by, and maybe people also see that okay, I can build a house from it if the architecture is nice, because well, right now, just one small perspective, there are a lot of SIP panel houses, model houses, and people right now are looking at them about a bit skeptic, but some of them are already building them, and I think that something similar will be to those container houses that at start, like every new stuff, they will be very skeptic. They will see something has been built. They are cheaper, so they are even more skeptic why it's very cheap and all that etc. stuff. So yeah, when will there be more offices, public spaces of containers? Then I think in 10 years there could even be houses of containers, so where people live their everyday life in some place where the house couldn't be built by bricks, for example.
Yes, indeed.
Jan, question for you. Do you see any container projects popping up around Prague or into the region yourself? Like, do you maybe already see it, or?
Regarding our region, it is a pretty new technology or pretty new way how to build buildings. There are companies which are maybe focused on like modular buildings or like pre-made buildings. You have a plot of land, you want to build a house there, and they bring it like from the factory, and but not as a container. It is like a normal building with an architect, and it's tailored to the person who wants the building. I know, for example, one startup, they focus on like modular buildings. So like the modules, you define how the building, how your house should be big, and how many bedrooms it should have, and so on. But again, it is not from containers.
Yeah, when speaking of these modular buildings and prefabricated panel houses, this is actually, I can say that this is quite booming right now because, as Janis also mentioned about the kindergartens, it is actually quite rising in the also in the public sector that the kindergartens are developed from modules. But there is a big difference between these modules that are being developed because they were from wooden frames, and as they would like to think that they are movable, they I would like to say that they think a little bit in short term, because when you're building a modular building from wooden panels, you can move it once or twice, that's all right. But if you're trying to move it up to 5 times, then at some point the joints and the connecting dots of the building is going to start moving, and the building is not going to be that safe. With containers, it's a totally different story, because the sole purpose of a container was to move it around as possible. It has traveled around the world and nothing has happened to it. It has experienced the harshest weathers in the seas. It constantly is in an aggressive environment with the sea salts and everything, and it can be moved in, well, incredible many times. So I think this is the biggest advantage of thinking of containers when developing a building, because you can move it in 10 years for one time, you can move it in 10 years afterwards, and it has this never-ending cycle of the building. Of course, you have to do some preparation work and some cosmetic construction on it, but in the general purpose, I think containers can be moved many times, which is the better advantage when thinking of wooden modular buildings. So, Karlis, do you want to add something?
Yeah, we are actually very close to the Q&A. Maybe we can jump a bit back, and maybe each of you can tell, from not from the modular perspective, overall, how do you think where the real estate development will move at the future? So, like, what is your prediction? Maybe even already some things. So, and then we maybe Ritvars can start.
Yeah, I can start. Well, firstly, my predictions will be based on what have I read and saw. And one thing what popped in my eyes was that I read some time ago this plan of Riga till 2050, that they plan to make the center, for example, of Riga, like in Amsterdam, only for mostly for walking, for riding with bikes, and like the green environment stuff. So, well, I think in the next years we'll probably see that the center of Riga will be more green, and there will be more new projects, because the investors are ready to invest and build, for example, new flats. And yeah, probably I see that the office spaces will be not so
Popular.
yeah, popular, because people will adapt to this electronic stuff, and they will move away further from the center of city. And yeah, I see that in next few years there probably will be the house. House, not bubble, but everybody will like to have a small house or small place where they have a garden and at somewhere to go out. So those are my predictions, that the USSR flats and etc. will be less and less
Popular.
yeah, popular, and more will be something new, alternative, and like new projects, smaller houses, even maybe these modular houses or these containers. So yeah, I see that in next years.
And Ritvars, you mentioned about the switching from the offices to. Have you seen, I don't know, the switch, for example, when the commercial property has been made about residential one to residential one? So, do you see something
like developed?
Yeah, so the commercial property is so before it was office and it's rebuilt to making it offices. Apartments there.
Yeah. I have solved some examples. One example which I live by is this in Agenskans, Valentina Iela. There's a new project where there was a industrial place, and now it's fully made to flats. And people bought their flats for pretty huge, pretty high these euro per square meter. So I see projects like that even more and more happening.
And this is actually very characteristic now in the historical city center, because historically we had this quiet center, especially. There's lots of these beautiful former apartment buildings that during the 90s, 2000s were repurposed into offices, and now actually the company is kind of. We have actually had a number of clients, and we see the potential clients for the prospective business centers that are being developed actually in those companies that they would like to move out of those buildings and premises into something more modern that is more flexible and more like user friendly, specifically for this office function. But at the same time, it will naturally be replaced by the people simply willing to live there. So that's a natural evolution that's happening.
Yeah. Something very similar is happening here in Prague as well. In the 90s, many buildings in the center or in the broader city center were like refurbished from the residential to offices, and now there is a big trend to do another transition and to change these buildings back to residential. And again, people can live in these buildings which originally were built for the residential purpose. And especially in the 90s, here was a big lack of good offices, which has changed, of course, with many new office buildings developments. And therefore, these buildings are not that attractive for offices, for companies, and they are moving to more suitable buildings.
Yeah, I can just also add from the seller perspective side, I have been also involved in some these industrial places or offices selling, and mostly when buyers come in, they ask whether you can make this place for living, because in the end, if you can make it for living and sell it as, for example, like residential property, you can get the most of the money. That has been in my experience. Janis can give his own, but so I see that it's happening even more and more.
Thanks, Ritvars. Maybe we are very closely as well for the time. And
no, I actually have a few questions for Janis, especially. I would, yeah, because when you walk around, for example, Riga, I can see that many new office building projects are now being developed, as you mentioned, in the Hansa region. And maybe you have some insights. How are they going to organize the office buildings? What is the purpose? Are they going to be for co-working, open space, traditional? What's the sole purpose of these projects?
Well, to comment on the Riga office market is that we have been over the since 2008. Hardly anything modern has been built in Riga. If you compare it to Riga compared to Tallinn or Vilnius, so these two cities have jumped ahead of us I would like to say light years, and so we don't have much of actually modern office stock here in Riga. So the things that are now just starting up, and that's not the whole that is in pipeline, you know. This is simply something that what do you call it? I think it's is this demand that has been in the market and that is now simply materializing.
Okay.
When you are saying when you are asking about kind of the form of the offices that are going to be there, so you rightly said that co-working as an element is an element in all of these schemes, because why it works well and why it's demanded, because we see that even, you know, may the company be small or big, but anyhow, during its life cycle, you know, its demands and requirements changes at some points. You know, you may land on a specific project that requires, you know, additional people, and then what do? So this co-working space actually acts as kind of as a buffer. You know, you put the project team into this co-working space for a certain time, but then again, your kind of the core operations still stay in your permanent place, and that's why it's like today this co-working is simply a must actually in all of the new schemes. And when it comes to the layout of the offices as such, I think it's more what I was talking in the beginning of this panel, that it's not about that you think of the office as open space or rooms, closed rooms. You think of a space that is designed and tailored to the functions of the specific tenant, and that's why you basically just invest more time and resources into really thinking your business processes over what you demand from your premises, and that is what the tenants actually put into those offices.
Okay, so basically they're going to be fulfilled, and they're going to meet the demands, and they're going to have tenants, and everything is going to work out for them.
Well, I'm not saying that everything is in chocolate, you know, and there are no threats to all this, you know. It's at all times when, you know, when you come into when something happens, when, you know, let's say compare it. So we have a small pond, and if you throw in a stone, then it's going to make a big splash, you know. And so this is similarly to Riga. Riga is a small market, and anything that happens, it comes with a scale, and the first impact is kind of a shocking, but then again, the splashes kind of absorb, and the things normalize over the long run. So next couple of years are certainly going to be interesting in a sense that it will be challenging, you know, to fill up the spaces. But then again, if we look at the examples of Tallinn and Riga, Tallinn and Vilnius, who went through this cycle, you know, 5 to 10 years ahead of us, it kind of it is the weird thing that it actually, once you build, you experience this induced demand, basically, that people didn't know before that they needed, similar to the iPhone, you know. It's like only then when you bring the people to test and actually feel this new product, then they simply go home and realize, okay, yeah, it's actually worth thinking about.
It's everything I ever wanted, just I didn't know it until now.
Exactly.
Right. Great, thank you. It was great information.
Is there anything from other participants to add? Comment or
by
question?
the way, about the co-workings, right now in some, actually, in not in lot, but in some projects, they're already building residential projects, they're already building co-workings and small offices or meeting points already in the residential property. For example, you live on the 7th floor. On the 1st floor, the house has co-working. So that's also nice, nice curve on what we are going.
For the people who are with the kids, mainly, then you can.
Yeah.
Okay. So guys, thanks for this. We have as well a few questions from the stage. So Edwin is asking, aren't these compact houses not made for extreme weather conditions? Are there ways to make those small houses energy efficient? I think it's more for the question for the Peteris.
Yeah, basically, I think we're going to be answering a lot of these questions in the next panel about the container architecture in practice. But I would like to compare, let's say, the traditional brick and mortar buildings with the installation used with the container buildings. When you're thinking of a container, of course, you can make it 100% energy efficient, and you can also make it passive. It's rather a question about the costs. Because at some point, making a container energy efficient and like a zero emission house, which is also as a passive house, it would be difficult. It is manageable, but it would be difficult because at one point you are going to reduce the inner space of the container, which is also already limited. And if you need to add a really great insulation in it, which is like 200 millimeters of, let's say, for example, spray foam, then you're losing a lot of space in the inside of the container. You can insulate the container from inside and from the outside, which would make it totally energy efficient. But then the question about the costs arise again. I think we don't want to impact that the containers are the most energy efficient housing solutions on the market. There are definitely other alternatives which are better. But if you're looking for a sustainable solution for permanent or contemporary living, then containers are a really good way to live. You can assure that in winters it's going to be good to live in. It's going to be warm because the insulation materials, as mentioned before, they are evolving constantly. And nowadays, if you use a really good foam insulation from polyurethane foam, it's just you need 5 to 10 centimeters of this foam to assure that the container is really warm in the winters, and it gives you the cold and then protects you from the heat in the summers. If you apply some efficient heating solutions such as I forgot the word in English, but well, basically you can also use solar panels and other solutions to make the containers and container buildings more energy efficient. Basically, what you want is can be applied. And from previous experiences, I can say that from each container project that we develop, we learn something, how to do something or how not to do something, and we're also constantly R&Ding our practices and the materials used. And there are container buildings. Oh, I actually wanted to mention one of the most interesting projects that have been developed from containers. It's an Arctic research center in Arctica. I have this huge container book, which has the most interesting projects that have been developed, and I think that one tops all of the other container buildings. It was developed in Arctica, which is extremely rough conditions. And the main idea, because why they used containers, was it had to be modular, it had to be movable, and they had to do all the preparation work outside of the Arctica, because not a lot of construction is possible in the minus 30 to 50 degrees.
So thanks, Peteris, for explanation, and hope, Edwin, it answers as well your question. Because if the container is in Antarctica, so basically it's possible. And we have as well comment. There was one comment. I think we can skip that part. We are as well soon out of time. But there is one more. Angelo is asking, most container houses in Portugal are multi-container units, 2 or more, as we have minimum area requirements for houses. What is the reality in Northern Europe, if there are one? So anything.
Well, as we talked before, the people in our regions are quite conservative, and it actually depends. There are many projects that contain of just a single container buildings, but from my perspective and from the projects we have done, I can say that most of them are multi-container projects. It consists of 2 or more containers to make the space more accessible and bigger. Because when you're using, let's say, 20 feet container, the inner space of it is 15 square meters. It's for some it's enough, but on most times you need a little bit more space, so that's why you add 1 or more containers to it.
Thanks, Peteris. And hope as well, Angelo, that as well answers the question. If there are more questions, feel free to ask them as well on the other panels. And anyway, the event is open for both 2 days, so everything will be discussed and answered. So, and yeah, so we are close to the time. We would like to thank all participants and industry experts here. And let's meet you at the next panel. And have a great day for the other people.
Yes, and guys, if you want to talk to any of us, I think most of us are going to be on this event, and just call us up or arrange a private meeting, and we can explain everything to you in more details. And I would like to thank all of the speakers that we had today. It was a very interesting panel, and I think I personally learned a lot of information, which I wanted to know. So I really hope that for others it was the same. And thank you, guys.
Yeah, I would like to thank you as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.